On Tech News Today, Facebook apologizes for its real names policy but doesn't really change it. Plus, we've got a ship date and new details about Apple Pay. And what is MIT going to do with every tweet ever tweeted? Stick around and find out. Tech News Today is next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. And by Citrix GoToAssist, the #1 global market leader in remote support. Sign up for GoToAssist before October 10th to get another Citrix product free for 6 months. Visit GoToAssist.com and get started. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan, and good morning to you, Jason Howell.
Good morning. Woo.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay, holding it together. We have a lot in store for today's show, and let's just say technically, I feel like I'm juggling right now.
Yeah, if you were a vaudeville performer, I think you'd have like 6 bowling balls going.
I definitely have a couple of spinning plates on the top of my head.
So anyway, it's folks, if you didn't see the pre-show, this is a complicated show, and Jason is doing it. If only you had multiple arms, it would be so much easier, but...
Well, I'll work on that.
Work on that science. We also have Elise Hugh, who is our Thursday co-anchor. Welcome to you, Elise Hugh.
Thank you, Mike and Jason. Really great to be here on another Thursday.
I saw the most wonderful program the other day. It was called Eric Schmidt and Jonathan Rosenberg in conversation with Elise Hugh. What a show that was. Wow. That was fantastic.
They are doing their book tour and doing a couple stops in, I think they're doing 4 or 5 of these live events in major cities, and invited me to moderate a conversation with them. So we did that on Tuesday night, went an hour long, really wide-ranging conversation, touched on everything because we had audience Q&A. So they wanted to ask about Julian Assange and wanted to hear when self-driving cars were actually going to be a reality. And of course, our conversation, the one between myself and Jonathan Rosenberg and Eric Schmidt, focused a lot about Google's culture and what they see as the best way to manage big teams and hire them as well.
Yeah, and the book is called How Google Works, and I can't wait to read it and listen to it. It sounds good. Now, it's fun I would imagine, to interview Eric Schmidt because he basically has an interesting filter. He's a super smart guy, and he's totally involved in everything Google does, and he kind of has a veiled contempt for political correctness and saying things that sound good. He oftentimes just goes out there and blurts out stuff that is very quotable and very newsworthy, simply because he really believes that he can communicate things to people that most CEOs and chief executives would normally just gloss over, just so they don't have to deal with the aftermath and the press. So that must have been a very interesting interview.
Yeah, he didn't hold anything back, and towards the latter half of the interview, he started saying things like, "I'm sure you're not surprised that I have an opinion on this." So yep. So yeah, very confident in everything he has to say. Interesting guy.
Yeah, very interesting guy. So let's jump into the news. A Facebook executive yesterday apologized to drag queens and LGBT supporters who were affected by the social network's real names policy. Facebook Chief Product Officer Chris Cox made the apology and addressed the issue in a post on where else? Facebook. Selena Larson wrote about the issue for Read Write and joins us now. Welcome to you, Selena.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, before we get into the details of this, can you summarize the controversy that has unfolded over the past 2 weeks or so?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a group of drag queens that was actually given emails by Facebook that said that they weren't using their real names, and so their accounts were going to be deactivated until they provided their real name. So they were using stage names, for instance, Sister Roma. And that got a lot of people, obviously and understandably, up in arms about this because Facebook's policy is that people have to use their real names as it is on their driver's license or another form of identification. And a lot of people don't identify or don't think that their quote unquote real names really personify who they are. So it's been weeks of back and forth. There's been a lot of people crying out over this controversy. A lot of people have threatened to quit or have quit the social network because of this policy. And so Facebook actually met with the drag queens, and Chris Cox released that apology. However, as you could see, he didn't actually say that they were going to be reversing the real names policy.
So, Selena, just to be clear, even though they are sorry, the policy stands as it was?
Yes, absolutely.
Except for these drag queens in particular that got reinstated. So kind of parse this for me.
Yeah, so the real names policy, Chris Cox made it really clear that Facebook still believes in this quote unquote real names policy. He mentioned that it stopped cyberbullying, trolls, harassers, and abusers. Because of this real names policy, they're able to sort of vet these people, and people can report them if they feel threatened. However, there was no mention of the threats that people get when they often do use their real names. For instance, people in the LGBT community or other people that are suffering from harassers. So Cox said that the spirit of the policy is that real names are whatever the person chooses to use on Facebook. However, the enforcement of the policy and in help pages, it clearly states that it's a driver's license or student ID or other form of identification that can verify your account. And according to Cox, Facebook has no plans of changing that.
Now, it's kind of strange credibility for him to say that they need a real names policy. I believe that Facebook is the only major social network that has one now. Google recently rescinded their real names policy completely. They basically said you can use any name you like. Twitter, of course, doesn't have one. I'm not sure about Pinterest and the rest, but pretty much Facebook is the sole remaining social network that's trying to enforce a real names policy. Now, on the one hand, they kind of have a point, which is that on Twitter, where trolling and hate speech is just rampant, that's a case where, you know, maybe a real names policy might help. But on the other hand, Google Plus has some trolling and so on, but it's mostly due to their forced integration of YouTube. The tools on Google Plus are roughly similar to the tools on Facebook, and both Facebook and Google Plus have pretty low rates of trolling and spamming compared to Twitter. That's my perspective. Maybe you have a different perspective, but I guess back to my original question, that's really not credible. You really don't need a real names policy, do you?
No, so Facebook sort of has this stance that they really pride themselves on having real names. I mean, it was built as a social network. It was a place for friends. Mark Zuckerberg has said numerous times, although he recently has said that they're thinking more about anonymity features. But they've sort of always stuck to their guns about having people use their real names and be able to connect with friends in an environment that, you know, is like they try and keep it as safe as possible. So this is something that they've always had. And it was actually another social network that is anonymous. I think I've talked about Secret before on the show. But there was somebody that posted on Secret that they were the individual that was, quote unquote, outing the drag queens and reporting all of them to Facebook. And Facebook said it was one single individual that was reporting hundreds of drag queens that were using their stage names. And Facebook responded to this one individual's request by sending these emails just like they would any other reports of people using false names.
So what is the criteria exactly, according to Facebook, for what a real name is?
So a real name is something that they don't technically say the legal name. And so that's kind of the semantics that they go with. But real names, according to Facebook, are the names that you can find on driver's license, pay stub, any proof of identification that you can provide to the social network. They do have other options. You can put in a nickname. You can put in like a secondary name that will appear in parentheses under your first name, but there's no way of assigning that nickname as your default or your quote unquote real name on Facebook. So if you're reported to Facebook, like somebody was doing to all of these drag queens, you'll get an email that says you need to change your name to your quote unquote real name. And they have to. So Sister Roma changed her name to Michael, and so that's what she's going by on Facebook right now. But after yesterday's apology, I assume most of these drag queens are going to be changing their names back to what they feel best represents their true identity.
Now, the whole thing, in my opinion, is a pretty rotten deal because basically there's certain types of names that appear like non-real names, right? And then there are other names. I could just go there and set up a Facebook account and say my name is John Smith, and that's not my name, and nobody would ever question it because it sounds like it could be my name. And so I think it's safe to assume that there are thousands of accounts on Facebook where people are using fake names, but because of the nature of their name, it's never going to be questioned, whereas people who have names that look a little suspicious will be questioned. And also, some people have suspicious names, and it's their real name. Violet Blue, I believe, is one of them. That's her real name, and that has been questioned, and so on. And so that's really unfair, in my opinion. Just want to throw that opinion out. Now, you wrote about the hashtag #MyNameIs and the movement it references. What is that all about?
So the My Name Is movement is a response by the internet against Facebook's quote real name policy, and a lot of people have been tweeting with the hashtag My Name Is. They've also been posting on Facebook and different social networks with My Name Is, talking about their identity. So a lot of people don't necessarily go by their real names or their real identity. If I was to say that, you know, technically my real name is Selena Larson, but I prefer to go by Summer. I mean, that is just universally, maybe that's what people call me. And so I would say, you know, like, this is my name. This is who I identify as. This is what I identify as. And people all over the world have really come out in support of these drag queens and other LGBT people that have really spoken out. And just the community in general. I mean, this also happened when Google Plus had a similar policy. It was called the NIM Wars, and a lot of people, again, also at the time came out and said, this is how I identify. This might be my name on paper, but this is not my name as a person. This is not who I feel inside who I am. This is not who I want to be. So there's been a lot of really great outspoken tweets, a lot of people just coming together to really share their stories and share why they prefer to go by a different name, on whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on stage as a performer, or whether it's just in their everyday lives. Like, they just choose to be, they choose their name, and they want Facebook to acknowledge that they have the power to choose their name and their identity.
Selena Larson writes at readwrite.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at Selena Larson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right. In just a sec, we're going to check in on Apple Pay. We've got a little bit of new news there, but first I want to tell you about Gazelle. Gazelle wants to buy your used iPhone. They want to buy your used iPad. And the reason you want to sell it to them is they'll give you really good money, and it's super, super easy. You just go to gazelle.com. That's GAZELLE.com. Pick your item, choose the condition, and then they will give you a price, a really good price. You'll be surprised by how much they'll pay for your iPhone, even a broken one sometimes. And you can get a risk-free offer and free shipping. They'll pay you fast by check, PayPal, or if you choose the Amazon gift card option, they'll give you an extra 5%. It's, again, did I mention it's really easy? It's super easy. It couldn't possibly be easier. What's your iPhone worth? Take a minute and go to gazelle.com to find out. Well, Elise, it looks like we've got some new news in the world of Apple Pay.
Well, we've been waiting on a release date, and now it's here. Apple Pay will debut on October 20th, so just a few weeks from now. And that is, again, the credit card-free mobile payment system that Apple announced earlier this month. It will use near-field communication, or NFC, to let you pay for your purchases with your phone. You would simply wave your phone in front of something near the register. Joining us to talk about it is Ian Carr, reporter at Bank Innovation. Ian, so tell us, what can we expect on October 20th? What will we start seeing and where?
So October 20th is the date. I've been hearing from my sources within Apple, and we've been hearing that Apple Pay would be attached to iOS 8.1 since even before the September 9th announcement. And we were pretty surprised, because typically Apple uses a developer. And Mark Gurman has a wonderful report on this, that typically Apple actually shifted their development schedule. So they've been concurrently developing for iOS 8.1, 2, and 3 at the same time. Which really makes sense based on what I'm hearing from my sources. I think tentative schedule is October 20th. And it's interestingly, it's also the date that Apple has scheduled their earnings report. Will be announcing the iPhone 6 sales figure, most likely. So I feel like that's an interesting, nice little tidbit. And so yeah, everyone's very, internally everyone's pretty excited about it, as are the banks as well, of course. So yeah, right now we can say tentative scheduling for October 20th for sure.
Now, there's usually a chicken and egg type of situation between companies that roll out stuff like this initially and the industry at large where, places, stores where you can use it to buy things. Is that going to happen, or is everything locked and loaded and ready for Apple Pay?
Well, see, Apple Pay is using NFC technology. So NFC technology has been implemented by Google Wallet already for the past 3 years. NFC technology has been around for a while. So a lot of this stuff, a lot of the merchant side, these point of sale terminals are already NFC equipped, and Apple has been and it's actually interesting. There's a EMV standard that's being adopted in the U.S. in October 2015. So actually, the merchants need to, in order to comply to the regulations, they need to update their terminals anyway. So it's actually kind of perfect timing. I think Pando Daily did a pretty interesting story about that. But yeah, so they're actually already upgrading their terminals regardless. So it's actually, the timing pretty much worked out pretty well for Apple.
Ian Carr writes at bankinginnovation.net, and you can follow him on Twitter at IanCarr_. Thank you so much for joining us, Ian.
Thank you, guys.
All right. The UK company ARM Holdings, which makes about 95% of the chips that power smartphones, introduced a new operating system for the Internet of Things called the Mbed OS. That's MBED. Lawyer Lisa Fleisher is a tech reporter for the Wall Street Journal and joins us now. Welcome to you, Lisa.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me, Lisa?
We can see you, Lisa.
Yeah. There we go. We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Welcome to you. Now,
great.
does the Internet of Things really need another operating system?
Well, I think that most people would ask, oh, I didn't realize the Internet of Things had an operating system or didn't have an operating system. There's a lot of operating systems out there for Internet of Things. So I guess that one of the things that we'll probably see further down the line is maybe some consolidation or some Internet of Things operating system that might come out as dominant. And so ARM, which designs chips that are in almost all smartphones and maybe about 20% of Internet of Things wants to create an operating system that will be that dominant standard. It wants to make it easier for makers to jump in there and start making these Internet of Things. So instead of having to build the software themselves or mess around with some other one, they're just going to have it right on their chip. So their chip design. So it will only work on the chips designed by them.
Lisa, are we
there's
getting
a second part of this?
Sure.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
There's a second part of this announcement, which is essentially a way to manage or store all that data, all the data that comes from the little things, so that you can then go ahead and analyze that. And that is going to be a licensed product, meaning they're going to charge for that. That would work with other chip designers' stuff. So this is partially an attempt for them, for this UK chip designer, to get more people making things, and also an attempt to just basically move things along. Because one of the big problems here is that with all the Internet of Things, they don't talk to each other. You have a lot of different standards going on, a lot of different operating systems. So there's a bit of confusion. They're trying to bring a little bit of standardization to that.
So, Lisa, are we getting any closer to one standard or a company that's emerged as the go-to place where everybody's going to sort of congregate, or all the systems will congregate?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we'll have to see what happens with these new products from ARM, and we'll have to then also see what people want to use for connectivity, because it's not just about the operating system. It's also about, how do they talk to each other. So I think we'll definitely see something shake out in the next 2 years, 3 years perhaps. But until then, it's still pretty early days.
Lisa Fleisher writes for the Wall Street Journal. You can read her article and her other articles at WSJ.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at Lisa Fleisher. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Have a great week.
All right, you too. Well, Lisa, it looks like MIT is getting into the big Twitter data racket.
Yeah, this is an exciting new partnership of research and social media. Twitter is actually going to turn over every recorded tweet dating back to Jack Dorsey's very first one in 2006 to MIT's Media Lab. It has donated $10 million to the Media Lab, which is going to study how information spreads on Twitter and already has done some research in this area before. So joining us to talk about it on the phone is Hiawatha Bray, tech columnist at the Boston Globe. Hiawatha, welcome.
Hello there.
So kind of give us some background on how all of this partnership kind of came to pass in the first place. Were the two entities already working together in the first place?
Well, yeah, they kind of were, because what you have here is a professor at the Media Lab who basically had created a company called Bluefin, which existed to analyze the way people use Twitter while they're watching television, which is kind of odd. But of course, as you undoubtedly know, millions of people around the world now sit with their laptops or their phones tweeting as they watch. And they realized that they could acquire a great deal of very interesting marketing information by analyzing all this stuff. And so basically, that's now what they're going to do. So this professor's name is Deb Roy, created a company called Bluefin Labs to do that. And last year, Twitter paid an estimated $100 million to buy this company and made him Twitter's chief data scientist. And now they're expanding that partnership. He wanted to return to the MIT faculty, get more active at the MIT Media Lab, but he wanted to continue his connection with Twitter. And they said, hey, let's do both. And they came up with this idea.
Fantastic.
Now, I'm really excited about this because I've seen some data research done on Twitter data in a limited way by organizations vastly less capable than MIT, and it's been fascinating. It's an incredible repository of human behavior and trends over time, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with this. Now, to what extent is this going to be open to other scientists, to companies, to outside people who also want to get access to some of the information that is contained inside all of those tweets?
Well, to a considerable extent, it already is. It was like, I think, February of this year that Twitter announced a program that they are doing. Oh, it's called Data something, or I'm forgetting the name of it. It's in my story. And it's a program where they are basically asking academic researchers to come up with useful things they could learn by studying Twitter messages. And then they're picking the most promising looking programs, and they're saying, fine, we're going to give you complete access to the entire Twitter database. Now, they've already, for example, picked out Harvard and Boston Children's Hospital, Harvard Medical School and Boston Children's Hospital. They've already got it. And what they're trying to do is see if you can figure out the spread of foodborne diseases in a large population by watching what people are tweeting about. So I guess they're going to go back and look at outbreaks of salmonella and then look at what was on Twitter at the same time and see if they get any clues. So they're doing that over at Harvard right now. And there are people in Japan and Australia and Britain who are all working on these kinds of things. And they're using the entire Twitter database to study and see if they can get clues. And if it works, that gives us the possibility that in the future, before stuff happens, we'll be able to read incoming tweets and get some idea of what's going on. You know, like when Godzilla finally does attack San Francisco or something, we'll see him coming.
Exciting stuff. So when are we going to actually start seeing some of the first research come out of this? I know this is just being announced, but it already sounds so exciting. So
yeah, but I have no
idea. Should we expect it?
Like you said, it's a 5-year project. We don't know how long before they actually produce any kinds of results. I expect that in the years ahead, before the 5 years are up, we'll start getting some kind of information. But time will tell. The other thing, of course, that everybody's worried, at least this is what I'm worrying about. What came to my mind when I heard about this was the now notorious Facebook story where it turned out that they were changing what we saw on Facebook in an effort to sort of change the way we think. I don't think that's going to happen here, but I begin to get just slightly nervous when I find out that very smart people are analyzing what we say on the internet with an eye to changing our way of looking at the world. And they openly admit that what they're trying to do is come up with tools that can be used by media organizations and governments to advance social agendas of various kinds, like gender equality. Okay, fine. But to what extent do we want these elites controlling what we think by manipulating, say, Twitter? I don't know. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But that's the kind of thing that makes me nervous. I think these should be communications media, and I'm all in favor of analyzing what people are saying in an effort to figure out better how they can solve various social problems. But I hope they don't tip over into the realm of trying to make us think different. That makes me nervous.
Yeah, because that's our job in the media.
Yeah,
you know, that's
exactly.
That's something that Google realized when they started predicting about disease outbreaks based on people's activity on search. It turns out that they were completely wrong the last time. They were right a couple of years in a row, and then they were wrong because the media suddenly decided to go crazy and with a lot of scaremongering about the flu and so on, and so people started doing the search based on their anxiety, which was generated by the press. So really, that's one of the things I hope that they'll be able to really clarify in this. That it's not, people don't necessarily act on social media based on reality. They do it based on what they're thinking about, and what they're thinking about comes from the media for the most part. So that'll be an interesting area of research, I hope, for this project.
Absolutely. I don't know. Time will tell. I'm all for doing this because it really is this immense database of something that we have never before had. We can actually chronicle the minute-by-minute thoughts of hundreds of millions of people. I mean, right now, the BBC is rerunning these recordings of the diary of Samuel Pepys, this guy in the 17th century who wrote everything that happened to him over a 10-year period. And it gives us this huge insight into what life was like in London in that period. But that's just one guy. Imagine if you could see what billions of people were thinking at a particular moment in history. Now we can. And that could be hugely useful.
Hiawatha Bray writes at the bostonglobe.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at WATHA. Thank you so much for joining us, Hiawatha Bray.
Thanks very much.
All right. Well, a Hollywood lawyer representing several women whose photos were stolen in the iCloud hack scandal has threatened not Apple, but Google with a lawsuit exceeding $100 million. I talked to Variety reporter Todd Spangler this morning about the story. Hey, Todd, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, nice to be here.
So who is Marty Singer, and who does he represent?
Marty Singer is a pretty well-known Hollywood lawyer, and in this particular case, he's not identified which of his clients he's made this request to or demand to Google on behalf of, but he says he represents more than a dozen women celebrities and sports stars whose photos were hacked into and posted online.
Now, in his letter, Singer invoked the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA. Does that really apply here? And if so, is there a precedent for claiming copyright for stolen personal photos?
Well, that's not totally clear. I mean, his point is that these were illegally obtained, and so they don't belong to the people who posted them online. So, his argument is by default, they are not legally to be in the public domain.
It's an astonishing claim because if, in fact, eventually it's found that Google can't index copyrighted photos, their image search business is really in trouble. Now, why sue Google and not Apple? I mean, most of these photos, we understand, have been taken from iCloud, Apple's cloud service. Why not go after Apple?
Well, analysts don't see that as fruitful because Apple spells out its terms of service, and you have to protect your own account. And what seems to be the case here is that these accounts were, the passwords were either guessed or they were somehow illicitly obtained, and so that's how they cracked into it. So it wasn't some sort of technical flaw in Apple's systems that led to the breach.
Now, why did he only threaten a lawsuit and not actually just file one?
He's looking for action here. And by the way, he's not looking for Google to remove anything from its search index, at least not according to the letter. What he wants are the images of his clients to be removed from services like YouTube and Blogspot, which Google owns. And he claims that he's sent more than a dozen DMCA takedown notices for these images, and Google has not proactively or expeditiously responded to these. And in fact, he claims that they are profiting from facilitating the sharing of these photos.
And the lawsuit is for $100 million. How did he arrive at the dollar amount? Do we have any idea?
No, again, it's not a lawsuit at this point. It's a very explicit threat. He is saying, look, if you guys don't cooperate here, we're gonna sue you. So it's not a lawsuit at this point. I don't know how you arrive at a dollar figure of that nature. You know, that would you would have to have a judge or a jury agree that, you know, the harm to your reputation and so on is resultant in compensatory and punitive damages of that order. I think he's just trying to get attention.
Now, he said in his letter that Google is like the NFL and turns a blind eye to the victimization of women. Is that really fair? I mean, isn't it Google's job to index what's on the internet?
Again, this is not about the search index. This is about photos that are hosted on Google-owned properties. You know, I think the comparison is kind of a stretch, just personally. And again, you know, he's using this rhetoric to get attention and publicity. And, you know, his ultimate goal here is either to get the images taken down or win money for his clients.
All right, Todd. Well, thank you for coming on Tech News Today.
You're welcome.
Todd Spangler is at Variety.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at xpangler. That's XPANGLER. Just a sec, we're going to wrap up the show, but first I want to tell you about GoToAssist. If you do IT tech support, you know how hard it is to do, and that's because people have problems locally on their systems, and you may not be in that part of the building, in that city, in that part of the world. It's really difficult to do that, and you really need to be there, and that's how GoToAssist helps you. GoToAssist is the #1 global market leader in remote support. They use easy-to-use cloud-based remote support solution, and you and your IT team can solve problems faster. And if you sign up for GoToAssist before October 10th, you'll get another Citrix product of your choice free for 6 months. GoToAssist remote support lets you provide live and unattended remote support to any computer or mobile device. Screen share to diagnose and fix problems faster and more effectively. And you can use GoToAssist apps to easily deliver support anytime, anywhere. Sign up for GoToAssist today and get another Citrix tool free for 6 months. Visit GoToAssist.com and get started, but don't wait. The special offer ends October 10th. Visit GoToAssist.com and sign up to receive this special offer today. Well, in other news, new pictures have emerged of the construction of Apple's future spaceship campus. Let's take a look at this. Look at that. So they've already constructed a lot of cement there. Now, that indentation is actually the underground portion, and the roof of what looks like the top of what they've built there is the floor of the building. There's a huge amount of this campus that's going to be underground, including a big hall where they're going to announce products, and there's freeways underground, lots of stuff underground, because on the above ground they're going to have lots of parks and trees and stuff like that. So it's looking pretty good, and they are making really, really fast progress. Well, the Dubai Police Department intends to hand out Google Glass to detectives who will use the wearables for face detection using special glassware developed by the department. The software will be able to compare faces against a database of wanted criminals. And this is the same police department that has Lamborghinis as cop cars. So they are not short on funding. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Christian Ottesen in Denmark, who says he watches Tech News Today. Are you ready for this? On a jailbroken espresso machine at the headquarters of RunGap. RunGap is a free workout tracker for iOS. How come our espresso machine doesn't show
I love this.
live.twit.tv? It's incredible. It's better than caffeine.
The Danes.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the Danes are always ahead.
Yeah, in both technology and coffee.
Although 40 minutes in front of a coffee machine, I don't know, it's maybe a little bit long for standing in front of a coffee machine. Hopefully, at least you're drinking the coffee while you're there. But
well, the Danes drink a lot of coffee, so I think it makes sense. So how do you watch it?
It's kind of like going to the gas station, actually, right?
Exactly.
Filling up on your gas. You're like, oh, okay, that's on.
Yeah. Well, how do you watch or listen to TNT? Just record a video or take a picture of your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT and we'll find it. You can also search the hashtag HowIWatchTNT to see them all for yourself. That is the Tech News Today. Jason and Elise. Wow, Elise, that was a great interview with Eric Schmidt. What's the best way for people to go find that? I guess just Google it?
Yeah, you can Google Elise Hugh. My last name is spelled H-U. There, it's right on the screen. And Eric Schmidt. The video is pretty easy to find. There's a search engine called Google.
Really?
That makes it really easy to find it. Yeah, it's crazy. And then obviously you can always tweet at me at Elise WHO.
All right, Elise. Well, thank you so much, and we will see you next Thursday.
Great. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, you can subscribe to Tech News Today on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Veely, Yahoo, RSS. So many options. You can choose your favorite way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. Follow us on Twitter. Tech News Today TV is our Twitter handle, and you can join our Google Plus community. Just search Google Plus for Tech News Today and send us your thoughts and opinions. You can send email to tnt@twit.tv, leave voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW, and don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.